Rolling.
Scene TY, take 3.
Okay, and action.
She can manifest nuclear explosions from a mile away.
And cut.
Oh my god!
Yes!
Superman is about a guy who can shoot soup out of his nipples, but I think at its core it's about a guy who just wants to fit in somewhere.
Like, this is this guy's best effort to make his soup nipple ability really cool.
I don't remember if Luke and I had talked about it or if it just kind of came out of nowhere, but our friend Ryan King sent us over some scripts, and there was one that we read, and it was about this husband and wife arguing about having the ability to summon up soup.
Talked about maybe he shoots the soup out of his nose, and then we thought, we don't want to make people sick. And then it just hit me. The stupidest place to have soup come out of your body is the nipples. And now that I'm playing the character, boy oh boy am I glad that I picked that.
When you want to make superhero costumes on a budget, you have to get really creative. Now, when you think about superheroes, you usually think of those skin-tight costumes. And so we looked online and found some compression shirts that looked really cool. And then we found, a cape online. Really, that looked pretty cool and all, but with those you can see where the costume ends at their wrist. So we needed something to create like a gauntlet or a cuff on their wrist to sort of hide the seam where the costume ends. So this was just by chance. It was around Halloween when we were filming this, which is always helpful when you need costumes. And I went into a Dollar Tree and I found these little tiny costumes for children that were actually like dragon wings and bat wings, that a little tiny kid would wear, but we were gonna use them on their wrist. And I took them and I cut them and I wrapped them around. And when we got to set, I had to sit down and glue them so that they would stay on our actors' arms. So it was a little tricky, but it ended up looking great. On camera, you can't tell that it was some old costume that I cut up and turned into the cuffs.
By far the most difficult part of creating the Superman costume was turning a giant soup bowl into superhero underwear. And so it just happened at that time. My wife had bought a yoga ball that turned out to not be the size she was looking for. So I stole that from her. I cut it in half, and then I built a interior skeleton out of PVC pipes, and then wrapped the yoga ball around that, and then bonded the two together with that spray insulation foam. As far as the red cape that I wear in the film, that is actually a cape I wore in another project where I was Jockey Man, a superhero for the Jockey Underwear Company. So I don't always play superheroes, but when I do, they are always ridiculous.
So COVID-19 happened. We shot the dinner party December of 2019. By March, we're in a pandemic lockdown.
We ended up working from home for quite some time, and it definitely made filming more difficult. Just make sure I get it good, right? Stop. But to make this short film, we thought, what's one way that we could still pull off making some original content in 2020? So we decided probably the best plan was micro shorts, because it's stuff that we could shoot really fast. It wouldn't cost a ton, and that was our solution to still being able to make creative and passion projects despite the fact that the country is shut down. Basically from there, we just follow the CDC protocols. You're trying to be as safe as you can and then also still be able to produce something at the same time.
And action. She can manifest nuclear explosions a 4 mile away. I mean, how far can you shoot this? Not very far.
Once Souperman greenlit the script, it occurred to me that I only had about 14 days to not only lose the COVID weight I had packed on, but to get in the kind of shape where I might be believable as like a B-list superhero. So it was about 14 days of eating nothing but tuna and almonds, running like crazy every day. I'm definitely happy with where I ended up, but it would be nice to get one of these shirtless roles when I'm already in shape one of these times. It never happens that way.
Well, you fight the bad guys, you work up an appetite, and then zap!
Soup's on!
One challenge we had was that a character's hair was going to be on fire the entire time.
Practically the hardest shot in all of Superman was getting this fire hair figured out. So there was a character from Home Alone, Harry, and he was one of the bandits in the film, and there's a scene where he gets his head lit on fire by a flamethrower. And the way they did that effect was they actually set up a mannequin silhouette in a room that was completely dark. So the only luminance came from the flamethrower itself, but they were able to conform it to the shape of the mannequin's head. And so that was kind of my thought with doing that in 3D. So I used a 3D model of a person's head to basically use that to generate fire hair. But the problem that we ran into was, one, the renders were taking far too long per frame to be able to output as many shots as we had with that character, and then two, we didn't have powerful enough computers in the office. But I have a personal computer at home that's powerful enough to perform these 3D fire hair renders. So on Fridays I would work from home and I would be generating this fire, trying to figure out what in the world does this look like, how do I comp this together. There was a lot of times where it was honestly depressing and I felt bad because you're the guy. And if the guy doesn't know how to figure out this shot, then I don't know, it's a blow to your confidence. So the other issue was I couldn't get feedback as fast as I wanted to.
Ellis would have to upload video files and be like, hey, how does this look? And then Luke and myself are having a hard time. We're trying to talk it through, but then you don't know how to convey those notes without being in the same room with each other. So all in all, that came to a head where we realized maybe this isn't the best working environment. And maybe it comes time to step up and get a huge, super powered VFX computer.
You would not believe how heavy this thing is. It's like 1,000,000 pounds. And I accidentally put it in the crevice here when I got home. That was so hard to get out. That was a huge boost in confidence, really brought me in with a fresh perspective on figuring out these shots. And we eventually decided that 3D wasn't the answer. So we went to actionvfx.com and we got a bundle of 2D fire hair that's been keyed out. And so I would use these different fire effects to kind of shape them and morph them around his head per shot. And we ended up getting a really realistic look for the fire hair for this short film, and it's finally done. Very proud of it.
And having this VFX computer, it has improved productivity. I know Ellis has had a blast just getting to design all these things, and stepping up our VFX game was a very essential part of not only this movie, but Souperman films moving forward.
How do you come up with the names of your hard drives, Ellis?
What's it called whenever you have the letter mean a word? An acronym.
What's it called, Brad?
Yeah, it's an acronym. So my hard drive, my first one is called Sarah for super amazing, really awesome hard drive. That's a 12 terabyte. This is VES for Visual Effects Station. And then
what about that one?
That's Lois. That's for Land of Infinite Storage. We had another VFX shot that was very interesting. We had to have a pin basically floating up in space whenever Superman was powering up.
And our original idea was, let's try to do this practically like they did in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. And I've seen this video for years. I remember watching it online forever ago. And they had a huge sheet of glass with a pin stuck to it, and they were spinning it, and it looked so cool. And the reason it looked so good is because it was practical. There was no wires or anything hanging from it. So that was our plan. The only thing is, when you're filming through glass, there is a ton of reflections. We did a rehearsal shot. It kind of worked, but when we got to set, there's way more lights, there's way more stuff going on, and it was taking too long to figure that out, and we were like, screw it, we'll fix it in post.
So that means I had to design a 3D pin in post. So I spent about a day just meticulously looking over this gel pen, recreating it from scratch. I even got the fine print on the inside of the plastic where the ink cartridge resides. I was like, this is it. This pen looks perfect. It looks realistic. So proud of this. And then whenever I was comping it in, it wasn't looking perfect yet. We couldn't get the reflections of the space and the lighting to be absolutely perfect. So Luke just went through and happened to have a video clip of the pin from set, and then he just comped it out and had a 2D layer of just the pin itself, and then animated it up and was like, I'm done, I did it. And I was like, cool. That's a day of work making a pin for nothing. But it's cool.
Now, another thing that we talked about when we were writing the script with Ryan and said, sure, that'll be easy to pull off, but we didn't actually think about how we would do it, was the soup nipples.
Serving nipple soup. Get your nipple soup here.
First, we tried stock footage, because there's a ton of great stock footage online that's already has a green screen or it's already keyed out or whatever. It definitely looked pasted in. It felt flat. Then we were like, maybe we could film our own footage and composite it in. Right nipple, take 3, and action. We tried water at first. It was actually looking really good now in terms of it felt like it was in the scene, but it looked too clear. You know, it didn't look like chicken noodle soup or anything like that. Then we tried mixing some creamer with it. Then we finally were like, let's just actually get some chicken noodle soup, which I had in my cabinet upstairs. We grabbed the chicken noodle soup, we try a few different consistencies until we finally got that right consistency. We got the right color, the right thickness, and once it was done, they looked like it was literally soup coming out of his nipples.
I know one pretty far.
The last and final moments in Superman, he gets put into a soup kitchen, and we were trying to find a space for the longest time on where could we shoot this on location, but we're also filming during the pandemic, so finding locations is already a challenge because nobody's like really willing to like open up their space for you to shoot in. So at first we were like, maybe we could use Luke's church, but it just didn't really fit the look of an industrial soup kitchen. And so Luke jokingly said, why don't we just 3D model it? And I was like, okay, I'm in. And so I just like at home one day started modeling out the space for a soup kitchen. And it was one of those moments where the spirit of like art kind of takes over and you zone out, and then you like come back to reality and everything's done and you're like, whoa. And somehow that was easier than the fire hair. I'm not really sure how that happened, but it was.
You can hold it up a little bit higher. Wait, okay, now you're in. Okay. You're in, now you're out.
It was a ton of fun being back on set. You really don't think about it, but you're missing that camaraderie. And even though it was a little different than how it was pre-COVID-19, it was an interesting and bold idea.
You can manifest nuclear explosions from a mile away. I mean, how far can you even shoot this thing? You.